This happened a couple of years ago. I was 34, excited to host my family for Easter dinner at my new Victorian house. I thought it would help us reconnect after a long time apart. The house felt cozy, charming even. But I've never stopped thinking about what happened that day. I spent the morning preparing the meal. The house creaked whenever I moved, and a chill ran down my back. I stepped outside for fresh air and noticed bright, decorated eggs scattered in my yard. I didn't have kids and hadn't invited anyone who would bring them. Maybe a neighbor left them as a joke? It seemed harmless. When my family arrived, I tried to focus on the dinner. The smell of roasted meat filled the kitchen, but an odd tension hung in the air. My cousin Ella suddenly said she saw something in the upstairs window. I shrugged it off, thinking it was just her imagination. Soon, another cousin mentioned hearing laughter echoing in the hallway after the kids had gone home. That made my stomach churn a little. Was it the old house making these sounds? I had heard stories about creaky floors and drafts causing strange noises. But the strange things kept happening. During dinner, I glanced down at the table and saw those same decorated eggs again. They were right in the middle of the table. I was sure they hadn't been there before. I tried to laugh it off, but the way they were arranged made my skin crawl. Another cousin said she saw the figure in the upstairs window again. I excused myself and climbed the stairs, feeling a mix of dread and curiosity. My footsteps echoed in the empty hallway. I peered out the window but saw nothing, just my still backyard. It felt like a weight pressed down on my chest. When I returned downstairs, the mood had changed. Everyone was still talking, but their eyes looked scared, wide with something I couldn't quite name. Someone suggested we go outside to look for more eggs, and we all agreed. I remembered the pile I had seen earlier and felt a strange pull to it as we stepped out into the dusk. The eggs in the grass glowed. It looked wrong. Suddenly, I saw a shadow dart between the trees at the edge of my yard. My heart raced, and I stopped breathing for a moment. Everyone turned to me, waiting for an explanation. Then I realized the shadow I thought I saw was gone. I felt a chill run down my spine. Maybe this was all just a prank? Or worse, I didn't know. Then, I heard a giggle, a soft, childlike laugh, echoing around us. It didn't sound like any of my family. I looked around, but they seemed just as confused, their eyes darting around, searching that I felt my stomach drop. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. A heavy feeling settled in. Was someone playing with us? I took a step back, looking for the shadow again. I didn't want to be near the eggs anymore. I had no idea what was going on, but I felt something was very, very wrong. As I tried to catch my breath, the laughter faded into the night. It unnerved me, but I couldn't find the words to say anything. I glanced back at my family, but their faces mirrored my fear. We stood rigid, eyes scanning the yard, waiting for something to happen. Finally, my sister Sarah broke the silence. Maybe we should head inside? The suggestion hung in the air, and nobody immediately responded. I could see she was shaken, too. I nodded, hoping everyone would follow my lead. I turned around, feeling the need to escape this moment. We shuffled back towards the house, but just as I reached the door, I heard it again. A soft giggle drifted behind us, this time closer. My heart raced. I wasn't imagining it. Panic surged through me. I looked back, half expecting to see a child among the shadows, but there was nothing. Just the tall trees and the faint glow of the eggs. Did you hear that? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. My family nodded, wide-eyed. We bolted inside and slammed the door shut as if that could protect us from whatever was out there. As we gathered in the living room, the atmosphere inside felt suffocating. My brain raced with confusion, trying to piece together what was happening. I glanced around the room, my eyes landing on the eggs again, somehow making their way inside. They now sat on the coffee table, arranged in a perfect circle. How had they gotten there? What is going on here? My cousin Ella demanded. This place is creepy. Maybe we should just call it a night, I suggested, hoping my voice sounded more confident than I felt. I had never minded the old house until now. But just as we gathered our things, the lights flickered and went out, plunging us into darkness. A loud crash sounded from the kitchen, followed by the unmistakable clatter of something sliding across the floor. We all froze, hearts pounding in our chests. My fingers trembled as I reached for my phone, its light barely cutting through the thick darkness. Then, I saw it. The shadow from earlier reappeared, but this time it was closer, almost solid. It darted past the edge of the living room and into the hallway. The giggle rang out again, chilling me to the bone. What was this thing? Stay together, I urged the group, my voice shaking. We crept toward the kitchen, the air heavy with dread. My stomach twisted as I replayed every event in my head. I stepped cautiously, my phone's dim light flickering with each movement. That S when I saw it. In the corner of the kitchen, amidst the ruins of broken plates and scattered decorations, a pair of wide eyes stared back at me. They were hollow, almost predatory. The figure dissolved into the shadows before I could take a breath, leaving behind an echo that sent my blood cold. What the hell was that? Someone shouted behind me, but I didn't answer. I was too busy piecing together the terrifying reality that whatever had come to my house was more than just a prank. We needed to leave, but the door felt so far away. Something was waiting for us, and I couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't finished with us yet. As we stood paralyzed in the kitchen, the remnants of our laughter and chatter had vanished, replaced by an unbearable silence. I felt the heaviness in the air, as if the house itself was holding its breath. The flickering light from my phone barely illuminated our faces, capturing the mix of fear and confusion. My cousin Ella whispered, "Maybe it's just a raccoon or something," but I didn't buy it. This wasn't wild animals. There was something more sinister lurking in the shadows. I wanted to turn around and tell everyone we had to leave, but in that moment, I couldn't find the words. Panic surged inside me again, tightening my throat. "Let us check the back door," Sarah suggested, trying to sound brave. I nodded, and we all knew we needed to regroup. We silently moved toward the hallway, squeezing close to one another for comfort. I led the way, every step feeling heavier than the last. When we reached the door, I turned the handle slowly, afraid of what might greet us on the other side. The cold metal was like an electric shock against my palm. But before I could push it open, a loud bang erupted from the living room. We jumped back. My heart raced as my mind raced along with it. "What was that?" I whispered, panic rising again. Maybe we should just go," Ella suggested, glancing nervously at the front door. Just then, the power flickered back on, flooding the house with light. But it did little to ease my anxiety. I glanced back into the living room and froze. The eggs from earlier, those damn eggs, were still arranged in that perfect circle. But something was different. One of the eggs had cracked open, revealing a tiny, dark shape inside. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. A small figure emerged, its skin dark and glistening like oil, eyes identical to the hollow ones I'd seen earlier. It didn't move, just hovered above the broken shell as if waiting for us to respond. "Is that a doll?" my brother murmured, but I could hear the tremor in his voice. "Dolls aren't supposed to do that," I said softly, swallowing hard. I stepped forward, drawn by an invisible thread of terror and curiosity. The closer I got, the more unsettled I felt. The doll's eyes seemed to pierce through me, capturing my very essence. Suddenly, a loud noise erupted again, not from the living room but from somewhere deeper inside the house. It sounded like someone, or something, crashing through furniture upstairs. Panic shot through me, igniting a desperate need to escape. "We need to go. Now." My voice steadied, but urgency echoed in it. We all turned and bolted back to the front door, adrenaline surging through our veins. I reached for the knob, but it wouldn't budge. "No!" I yelled, panic surging anew. It won't open. The laughter echoed again, bouncing against the walls of the house as if mocking us. I could feel the walls closing in, the reality of our situation settling heavily on my shoulders. We were trapped, and I didn't know what was lurking just beyond the threshold of darkness. Then, an icy whisper brushed against my ear. "Stay with us." Everything came crashing down around me. I spun around, but there was nothing, just my terrified family, eyes wide, horror written across all of our faces. I was sure of one thing. Whatever was in this house had no intention of letting us leave. We turned toward the living room again, instinctively moving as one. The haunting laughter had faded, but the sense of dread hung thicker than the shadows. The doll hovered above its shell, and now it seemed to grin a twisted, malevolent smirk. I shivered, shaking off the unsettling feeling that clung to me. Do you think it can move? Ella's voice quivered as she squinted at the doll. It felt absurd to be discussing a doll while we were surrounded by chaos, but I couldn't blame her for trying to make sense of it. Before I could respond, the crash from upstairs boomed again, louder this time. It sounded closer, more aggressive. My gut twisted in knots. We had to escape to find a way out before whatever was up there decided to come down to us. Let us check the back door again, I said, deciding it was the only logical choice. We turned, our feet stumbling slightly as we tried to navigate the fear that threatened to engulf us as we crept toward the hallway. I felt a cold breeze sweep past, freezing the sweat on my forehead. Sarah raised her hand, signaling us to stop. Did you feel that? We all nodded, huddling closer together. The door to the basement stood wide open, an inky darkness spilling out like smoke. I remembered my father saying the previous owners had left it locked. Why was it open now? Do you want to investigate? I whispered, my heart racing. The others exchanged glances, weighing my question. But we couldn't remain in this moment of fear forever, and I knew it would be easier to face whatever was lurking down there together. No way, my brother exclaimed, the look on his face a mixture of disbelief and fright. We can't go down there. Just then, a loud crash echoed from the basement, a sound that reverberated through the air like thunder. I felt the vibrations in my bones and nearly jumped out of my skin. We need to decide, I said, my voice rising in a desperate plea. Do we go back towards that thing in the living room, or do we investigate the basement? I vote we get the hell out, Ella said, her voice shaking with urgency. Before I could answer, the doll's eyes flickered. One moment they were dark and vacant. The next, they shone with an eerie red light. The air turned thick, and I felt a pinprick of recognition deep down in my core, an unexplainable connection to that doll. My mind raced. My grandmother had told stories about dolls that could trap souls. Were those stories true? Please, let us get out of here, Sarah begged again. The panic in her voice was contagious. I could see it in all their eyes. We needed to leave, and fast. Suddenly, the laughter erupted again, but this time it sounded like a cruel serenade echoing from the basement. I could almost feel it wrapping itself around us, suffocating yet thrilling. The front door started to rattle, as if someone was on the other side. I turned back in its direction, my breath hitching at the thought that maybe whatever was in the basement had made its way upstairs. Who's there? I shouted, but no one answered. Then I saw it, brief flashes of shadows moving behind the door. Guys, I think we're out of time, I said, my heart pounding wildly. Just as I turned to face the group, a figure loomed in the entrance to the basement, shrouded in darkness. We can't stay here. My voice barely rose above a whisper. The tension in the air was almost unbearable. We were out of options. And whatever was in that basement wasn't going to let us leave without a fight. The figure moved closer. It was a silhouette at first, just a dark shape in the doorway. But as it stepped into the dim light, my breath caught in my throat. It was a woman. Her face was obscured, but I could see her eyes cold and chilling, locked onto us. What do you want? I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. The air thickened around us as she took another step. My instincts screamed to run, to hide, but my feet felt rooted to the floor. I forced myself to look at my friends. They wore expressions of pure terror, mirroring my own. Go, I shouted, a surge of adrenaline pulling me from the paralyzing fear. Sarah grabbed my hand, and we turned, sprinting back down the hallway. The sound of footsteps followed behind us, echoing in the stillness, a haunting reminder that we were not alone. Is it coming? Ella gasped, her breath quickening as we pushed through the doorway. We dashed toward the back door, praying it wouldn't be locked. I could hear the creaking floorboards beneath us, the distant laughter still taunting us from somewhere in the house. "Please, please," I whispered as I fumbled with the doorknob, panic clawing at my throat. It twisted and turned but wouldn't budge. "Not now. Try the window," Sarah urged. I glanced around frantically, spying the old kitchen window beside the door. It was barely ajar, swaying slightly in the night breeze. It was our only hope. We rushed to it, shoving the window wider. My heart hammered as I glanced back down the hallway. The woman's figure stood there, watching us, her smile twisting into something cruel. I swore I could hear the laughter again, louder this time, echoing right in my ear. "Come on," I yelled, pulling Sarah towards the window as she glanced back, frozen in place. But just then, the back door creaked open. It was pushed from the outside, squeaking against its hinges with a determined force. I wrenched my hand on the window frame and climbed through, forcing Sarah to follow. We landed in the cool grass outside, but the feeling of safety was short-lived. I heard another laugh, closer now, almost as if it was following us. "Run," I shouted, grabbing Sarah's hand again and breaking into a sprint across the yard as we reached the edge of the property. I noticed something shining in the moonlight, a small, shattered piece of porcelain. I recognized it instantly. It was part of the doll. "Wait," I halted, heart racing as I bent down to pick it up. This was in the living room. How did it get out here? I turned it over in my hand, a chilling sensation racing up my arm. "Don't think about it. We need to go." Sarah pulled me back to the path leading to the street. But I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, the weight of something sinister hanging in the air. Just then, I felt a sudden rush of cold air sweep past me, like a dark wave crashing over my senses. Everything went dark for a moment, as if the stars themselves had blinked out. The laughter rose again, sharper and more pronounced, as if celebrating our fear. "Look out," Ella screamed, stumbling back as the ground beneath us began to tremble. That's when I saw it, a shadow darting through the trees, dark and relentless. We weren't safe yet, and whatever haunted that house was determined to keep us from escaping. Running felt like the only option, but my legs tangled in a mix of fear and confusion. I tightened my grip on Sarah's hand and pulled her with me. Ella trailed close behind, her breath shallow and frantic. We darted toward the street, hearts racing, and glanced back to the house. The woman stood at the window now, her silhouette framed by the moonlight, head tilted slightly as if savoring our terror. My stomach churned, and I forced myself to look away. "Where do we go?" I shouted, scanning the familiar neighborhood that now seemed foreign and threatening. "Let's south, head to the park," Sarah suggested. "It's more open there. We can regroup." We ran through darkened streets, our feet pounding the pavement as the laughter echoed behind us, seeming to shift and swirl in the air. I glanced down at the porcelain shard still clutched in my hand. I couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that it was somehow important. As we reached the park, I slowed down, trying to catch my breath. The moon cast eerie shadows through the trees, and the night felt pregnant with tension. I pulled the shard out of my pocket again, its surface smooth but heavy with a presence I couldn't quite explain. "What are you doing?" Ella huffed, her eyes darting around. "Put that down. We need to keep moving." "I know," but I hesitated. This belonged to the doll. "I think it might be a clue." "Clue to what?" Sarah asked. She was trying to maintain her composure, but I could see the fear flashing in her eyes. "Maybe to why she's after us?" I murmured, the thought weighing on me. I didn't know if I believed it, but it felt right. As if the doll was somehow intertwined with what happened in that house. A sudden gust of wind snatched the shard from my hands, sending it clattering against the grass. My heart sank. As I bent down to retrieve it, I felt the air grow colder, the laughter returning, twisting around us. "Get it. We have to go." Sarah's eyes flared wide with panic. I grabbed the shard, shivering at the thought of losing it again. But in that moment, something caught my eye. A silhouette among the trees, shifting with the shadows, more defined than before. It wasn't just a shadow anymore. It was a figure, standing still and watching us. "Run!" I yelled, as dread sank its claws deeper into my chest. We bolted deeper into the park, weaving past trees, trying to put distance between us and whatever that thing was. The laughter rang out now, louder and more taunting, seemingly following us between the branches. "Why is she coming for us?" Ella gasped between breaths, her voice shaking. "I don't know," I shouted back. "But we need to find help. We can't." Just before I could finish my sentence, the ground shook again, this time harder. The trees creaked ominously, low rattling echoes threatening to pull us down into the dark earth below. I stumbled, and the others barely caught me, but I caught sight of the figure again, now moving toward us. "Faster!" "She's right behind us," I cried, forcing my legs to move faster, lungs burning. Then the laughter morphed into something chilling and sinister, a voice, clear yet distorted. "Playtime isn't over yet." I turned to look back one last time, and the figure stood there, smiling. But now, instead of fear, I felt something else. Recognition. I realized I knew that face. But how? My stomach dropped. Questions spiraled out of control. What did it all mean? And why did this feel like just the beginning? We ran until the trees blurred into a dark mass around us, their branches reaching out like skeletal arms. My heart pounded in my ears, drowning out everything else. "Where do we hide?" Ella shouted, panting heavily. "Over by the swings." Sarah pointed to a faint outline in the distance. The old playground was barely discernible, but it seemed like a refuge from whatever was chasing us. Just as we reached the swings, the laughter morphed again, pinching at my sanity. It felt as if it was coming from all around us, drifting on the wind like a haunting song. I stumbled onto the soft ground, my legs finally giving out, and Sarah and Ella quickly dropped down beside me. Why is she doing this?" I gasped, aching for a shred of understanding, something to make sense of the mess we were in. "Maybe it has to do with the doll," Sarah suggested, her voice trembling. "Maybe she wants to play with us like she played with it." "Play?" Ella spat the word like it was poison. "This is not play." This is before she could finish. A rustling noise came from behind the swings. We froze, every sensory nerve jolting awake. It felt wrong. The air was electric with something impending. "Did you hear that?" I asked. "Yeah," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. "Get ready. We might have to run again." I gripped the shard tightly. It felt cold against my palm, almost like a warning. Then, without thinking, I took a quick glance back. That's when I saw it, a dark figure emerging from the shadows, moving slowly but with purpose. My breath caught in my throat. It wasn't the woman with the doll anymore. This was something else, something darker. I caught a glimpse of its face. It was almost human, eyes hollow, skin pale. The figure raised its hand, revealing something glimmering. It swung it slowly, like a pendulum. "What is that?" Ella whispered, her eyes wide. Before I could answer, the laughter erupted again, this time deafening. It filled the air, pressing down on us like a weight. We scrambled back, instinctively reaching for the swings to pull ourselves up, bellies tight with panic. That I turned to shout, "We need to help each other." But no words escaped. My throat felt clogged with the sheer horror of the moment. In that instant, the figure lunged forward, a blur cutting through the shadows. Something told me it was not going to let us go easily. I felt Sarah grab my arm, tightening her grip, her eyes urging me to move. Then everything went dark. The world vanished in a sweep, and I felt the ground disintegrate beneath us. My heart was pounding louder than ever as I struggled to hold on. I didn't know what was waiting on the other side of this darkness, but I dreaded finding out. I gasped for air and squeezed my eyes shut. Was it just a matter of time before the laughter found me again? Would we ever feel safe again? I blinked, and to my terror, I realized we were no longer on the swings. We were somewhere else entirely. A vast emptiness surrounded us, and in the center stood the doll, beckoning with its carved smile. The air shifted, and suddenly, we weren't alone. Someone was with us, and their presence felt dark and suffocating, a shroud filling the space. "Welcome to my playroom." The words licked my skin like ice. I knew we were in trouble. The doll stood at the center, its smile twisted and unsettling. I could feel something crawling up my spine, like icy fingers clutching at my throat. "What do you want?" I forced myself to ask, though my voice barely came through. Sarah shook her head, backing away, her hands trembling. Ella's wide eyes darted around us, as if searching for an escape that didn't exist. We were trapped in whatever nightmare this was. "Don't ask it anything," Ella whispered, her breath shaking. "It wants to play. That's what it does." I swallowed hard, trying to breathe through the panic rising in my chest. The doll's eyes seemed to follow us, flickering with a dark delight in our fear. "Maybe it's not the doll itself," Sarah said suddenly, her eyes narrowed, as if putting pieces together. "What if it's the spirit of the girl? The one who disappeared?" A chill ran through me. The stories we had heard whispered around campfires now played in my mind like a haunting melody. But if the doll was tied to a girl, maybe we could reach her. My thoughts spiraled as I imagined countless lost children, all echoing in this place. "Listen," I said cautiously, "if this is her playroom, maybe we just need to play. We can't fight it." The laughter from before erupted again, swirling around us like a taunt. "What kind of game?" Ella snapped, her eyes narrowing. "Hide and seek? Tag?" I suggested, desperation creeping into my voice. It sounded absurd. Then, as if answering my plea, the doll jerked, indicating a direction into the dark. Suddenly, the emptiness shifted, and shadows began to pull away from us. There was space, a small path winding deeper into unknown territory. "Are you crazy?" Sarah whispered fearfully. "You can't be serious. If we don't try something, it will consume us here," I said. My heart raced, but I didn't allow fear to paralyze me. "We got to move now." With a deep breath, I stepped forward into the darkness, and Sarah reluctantly followed. Ella held back, torn between fear and anger. "We can't let it win," she shouted, but I pressed on. The shadows slipped around us, whispering in voices that felt familiar yet distant. I glanced back, trying to keep track of my friends, but the darkness felt all-consuming. The air was heavy, thickening almost with each step we took. That's when I heard it footsteps. They echoed softly at first, then thundered with a rhythm that matched my heart. Something was chasing us, unseen among the swirling shadows. My stomach sank, and adrenaline shot through my veins. "Run!" I yelled, and we took off down the path. We moved as fast as we could, dodging unseen hands that seemed to reach from the abyss. Out of breath, I risked a glance back. I saw a flash. The dark figure looming closer, its hollow eyes boring into my soul. Whatever it was hungry. Then the doll's voice broke through the chaos, lilting and sweet, yet sinister. "The game has begun." I felt a wave of dread. This was just the start. Something far worse was coming, and we were at its mercy. Through the darkness, I could see an exit flickering at the end of the path, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were running in circles. My mind raced with fears and plans. Would we make it out? Or was there a reason this playroom felt so familiar? Just then, the laughter rose again. This time, it wasn't a melody. It was a chant, dragging us back towards the doll. "Keep running," I urged, my voice steady despite the terror. "Don't look back. We have to find a way out." But with every step, I felt the shadows close in, and my heart whispered, "What if there is no escape?" We plunged deeper into the darkness, the path narrowing as the laughter echoed, growing louder and more distorted. It felt like the very shadows were pulling us back towards the doll, but I forced myself to focus on the faint light ahead. We had to make it there. Suddenly, Sarah stumbled and fell, her knees scraping against the cold, hard ground. I barely hesitated. "Get up. We can't stop," I shouted, my voice strained. Panic coursed through me as I looked over my shoulder. The figure was gaining on us, a dark shape that seemed to shimmer and shift like smoke. "Help me," Sarah cried, her voice raw. I reached down, grabbing her arm, pulling with all my strength. Just as she regained her footing, the laughter morphed into a wail, piercing through the air. It was the sound of sorrow unbearable and chilling. I pushed forward, my mind racing. I could feel something in the air, a presence woven through the shadows. It wasn't just the doll or the dark figure. There was something more here, something that tied us to this haunted place. We have to keep moving. I yelled again, but my voice barely made it through the din as we sprinted. The path split into two. Which way? Sarah asked, her breathing haggard. I didn't know. This way. I pointed to the right, hoping it was the correct choice. The shadows thickened and the laughter transformed into a cacophony of whispers, taunting and playful. It was maddening. I could almost make out words, but they slipped away before I could grasp them. We barreled down the right path, driven by fear. But then, my foot caught on something. I stumbled, and a sharp pain coursed through my ankle as I fell. I looked down, and my heart dropped. Beneath me lay a collection of broken toys, their ceramic faces cracked and their eyes wide and hollow watching. I shifted away, repulsed at how they seemed to stare, not just at me, but through me. Are you okay? Ella asked, sounding more distant than she was. The shadows around her swayed as if they were alive. I'm fine, I snapped, forcing myself to stand. The pain flared, but there was no time to linger. We need to go. As I pushed myself back on my feet, my thoughts raced. Maybe if we confront the doll, we can end this, I blurted out, desperate for any solution. I didn't even believe it myself. What if it wants us to confront it? Ella said, fear lacing her tone. What if that's the game? Before I could respond, the air grew colder. The lights flickered uncertainly, revealing more remnants of the playroom, a carousel with faded paint and stuffed animals with empty, stitched mouths. A sudden realization struck me. The doll wasn't just toying with us. It fed on fear and despair. And then I saw it. A flash of movement at the end of the path. There, partially illuminated, the doll stood. Its lifeless smile stretched wider than before. It was waiting for us, its eyes glinting in the dark, hungry for our next move. A quiet stillness settled. I gulped, heart pounding, and whispered, we have to fight our fears together. But as I stepped forward, the shadows writhed and the air thickened, a foreboding tension rising around us. That's when I heard a voice, not the doll's this time, but a soft, pleading whisper. Help me. It was faint, yet clear enough to make my blood run cold. Someone was trapped here, just like us, and that knowledge sent chills down my spine. Who was begging for help, and what price would it demand for our freedom? In a sudden burst of clarity, something inside me snapped into focus. I turned to my friends, urgency flickering in my eyes. We need to find out who that voice belongs to. It might be our only chance to break this cycle. My heart raced at the thought, knowing that it could either lead us to salvation or deepen our suffering. But how? Ella protested, glancing back to where the doll loomed, dark and imposing. We have no idea what we're dealing with. What if it just wants to trap us, too? Then we'll face it together, I said, undeterred. We steeled ourselves, moving cautiously toward the doll, its eyes glimmering with an unsettling vitality. The laughter that filled the darkness seemed to shift, echoing with a mixture of niceness and malice. I could feel dread pooling in my stomach, yet I felt strangely compelled to confront it head-on. Maybe it needed us to acknowledge our fears, to strip them away in order to find a way out. Listen, I called out. We can hear you. Who are you? The shadows whispered back, sending a chill through the air. Yet the pleading voice gave no further answer. As we stepped closer, I could see the doll's smile fade slightly. A flicker of something human seemed to run across its face. Help me, the voice echoed again, this time sharper, clearer. Where are you? I shouted, my voice trembling but resolute. Silence blanketed the air, but as I stood tall, I could feel a connection pulling us together, fear and determination binding our hearts. Trust her, I urged my friends. The shadows around us twisted menacingly, but we pushed forward. If we can get it to show us what it needs, we might find a way to help. I reached out my hand toward the doll, a subconscious act filled with desperate hope. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, the darkness flared to life, swirling around us and illuminating the figure of a girl, a mere shadow confined within the doll. Her haunted eyes looked back at us, full of fear and longing. Please don't let her take me, she begged, reaching out with trembling fingers. You have to bring me back. Our breaths quickened in unison as the realization washed over us. This wasn't just a doll, but a remnant of someone lost long ago. "We can help you," I shouted, willing her to hear me. "Just tell us how." The doll began to quake, and the laughter morphed into wails of anguish. My heart raced as I stepped closer, instinctively sensing that to save her, we needed to face her fears alongside her. "What are you afraid of?" I asked, my voice steady as the winds howled and shadows danced around us. It felt as though an eternity passed before the reply came. Everything. The shadows rippled, shifting in and out like a wounded creature. I could feel all of our fears lurking within, but we needed to confront them. "Then let us face it together," I shouted, grabbing Sarah's hand. Ella followed suit, and we formed a circle in front of the doll. "We won't let you suffer alone anymore." The shadows twisted. Moments of despair washed over us. The pressure of what had transpired at the house pressed in as we confronted our own memories. Moments of doubt, failure, and helplessness swirled around us. But together, we anchored each other with our presence. Forces of resilience against the encroaching terror as we held on. A light began to spark within the darkness, a warmth igniting against our fears. The girl's hollow eyes softened at our bravery. "You're not afraid of her anymore," she whispered, her voice shimmering with fragility, yet filled with a newfound light. "You're alive." With each heartbeat, the shadows shrank, pushing back against the edges of the dark. The laughter turned into cries of sorrow, and I urged the group to keep going. "This is our chance. Don't stop." The shadows hissed and recoiled, the outlines of endless fear collapsing as our connected energy surged forward. Bright light cascaded around us, breaking through the encompassing dread. Suddenly, I blinked and felt my feet touch the cool grass again. The park. We escaped the playroom. My heart raced, but we weren't home free yet. I glanced around. The laughter lingered faintly in the distance, a reminder that something was still wrong. "Did we do it?" Ella gasped, glancing at the others. "Is she gone?" "I don't know," I admitted, still shaking from the adrenaline rush. Part of me felt lightened, but the unease nestled in my stomach only deepened. That connection with the doll felt lasting, like an echo of danger that would linger well beyond tonight. As we walked back toward the edge of the park, the whisper of the ghostly girl faded, but only slightly. I could feel her presence still woven into the air, forcing me to question what we had truly released. Did we truly help her, or merely banish her into another realm? Even if we escaped tonight, the shadows of my Victorian house would remain with me, buried deep in my mind. I knew I might never return to that house. The mysterious connection to the doll and the fate of that girl would forever hover in an unshakable tension. Some doors stay ajar even long after you've escaped their grasp. And though we made it out alive, the darkness we faced would never quite leave. I moved to a different city after that. Sometimes I wonder if I'll remember the laughter or the girl's voice, calling half pleading and half taunting from a distance I cannot bridge. But mostly I try not to think about it.